A little girl pushed open a door she was never supposed to touch, and what she found inside brought the most feared man in the city to his knees. Everyone in the mansion knew one rule: never go near his room. But 5-year-old Clara didn't know rules. She only knew that the sad man down the hall needed a teddy bear. What her tiny hands unlocked wasn't just a forbidden door. It was a secret 10 years deep, and a truth that would change everything. Hey family, welcome to my story channel. Please subscribe and give this video a like. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones. Thank you so much for the support. Now, sit back, and let's move into today's story. The knife hit the cutting board so hard that Amara's hands shook. Clara, stay close to Mama. Do not move. Her daughter, 5 years old, round-faced, wearing a yellow dress, looked up from her small stool in the corner of the kitchen. Okay, Mama. But Amara already knew that okay from Clara meant nothing. It was past 10 o'clock at night. The mansion was quiet in the way that expensive, dangerous places get quiet. Heavy, watching like the walls had ears. Amara had been working in this kitchen for 4 months. 4 months of waking at 5. Cooking 3 meals a day for a man she had never once seen smile. Junwoo Kong. Even the name made the other staff lower their voices. He was 38 years old, tall, with a face carved from stone and eyes that made grown men step backward. He ran businesses nobody asked questions about. He owned this mansion and 3 others. His security team carried weapons under their jackets. His driver never made eye contact with anyone. And yet, Amara cooked his food every single night, and every single night, he ate alone. She had taken this job because she had no choice. Her restaurant had closed. Her savings were gone. A woman named Mrs. O had recruited her personally, saying the boss required exceptional cooking. What Mrs. O did not say was that the entire staff walked on glass every single day. Amara was strong. She had raised Clara alone since her daughter was 2. She was not afraid of hard work or difficult men. But this place made her nervous in a way she could not explain. She plated the last dish, braised short ribs with sesame rice, and turned to check on Clara. The stool was empty. Clara? Silence. Clara. Her voice cracked. She spun around. The kitchen door that led to the main corridor was slightly open. A cold draft came through it. Amara's stomach dropped. She untied her apron and walked fast into the hallway. That was when she heard it. Music. Soft, delicate, like a child's lullaby playing from somewhere far above. It floated down the staircase like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Amara had never heard that sound before in 4 months. And it was coming from the upper floor. The floor where nobody went. One of the housekeepers, a quiet older woman named Mrs. Park, had warned her on her very first day. She had pointed to the staircase and said with a flat voice, "That floor is Mr. Kang's private floor. Nobody goes there. Not the cleaners. Not the security. Not even his right-hand men. If your daughter ever wanders, you bring her back immediately. Do you understand me?" Amara had nodded, not fully understanding why. Now she understood. She ran up the stairs 2 at a time. At the top, the hallway stretched long and dim. One door at the far end was slightly open. A thin strip of warm light spilled from inside. And standing in that light, still as a small statue, was Clara. "Mama," Clara whispered without turning around. "Come look. This room is for a baby." Amara stepped forward and stopped breathing. The room smelled like lavender. Not dust. Not mold. Not the cold, empty smell of something abandoned. It smelled like someone had just walked in and opened a window. Like the room was being cared for, quietly, by invisible hands. Amara stepped inside slowly. The walls were painted soft yellow. A small wooden bed sat against one wall, made up neatly with a pink blanket embroidered with tiny white stars. On the shelf above the bed, teddy bears. 4 of them, arranged carefully by size. Below the shelf, baby shoes. White ones with a small bow. Never worn. On the opposite wall, children's drawings were framed behind glass. crayon drawings, trees with orange leaves, a stick figure family, a tall man holding hands with a tiny girl, a purple house with a red door. A music box sat on the dresser, still playing. Clara walked to it and touched the small spinning dancer on top. Clara, don't touch. It's okay, Mama. It's not scary. She looked around the room with wide, calm eyes. Somebody loved this baby very much. Amara could not speak. There were storybooks stacked neatly on a small shelf. Korean titles. A name written inside the first one in neat handwriting, Suah. There was a small rocking chair. There was a tiny table with 2 chairs, a plastic tea set arranged on top, as if someone had been in the middle of a pretend tea party and simply stood up and never came back. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Like time had been frozen. Who lives here, Mama? Nobody, baby. We need to leave. Right now. Amara reached for Clara's hand. That was the exact moment she heard the footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Coming down the hallway. She turned. Jun Wukong stood in the doorway. He was still dressed from the evening. Dark shirt, collar open, sleeves rolled to the elbow. His face was the same as always. Unreadable. Still. He looked at Clara first. Then he looked around the room. At the music box still spinning. At the book Clara had pulled slightly from the shelf. At the tea set Clara had touched. Nobody moved. Amara's voice came out barely above a whisper. Mr. Kong. I'm so sorry. My daughter. She heard the music and I couldn't stop her in time. I take full responsibility. Please. He raised one hand slightly. She stopped talking. The silence lasted so long that Amara felt her legs go weak. Then Clara, because she was 5 years old and felt absolutely no fear, walked across the room, picked up one of the small teddy bears, and held it out toward him. Here, she said. You look sad. This helps. Something moved across Jun Wukong's face. It was not anger. It was not coldness. It was pain. Raw. Sudden, like a wound that had been covered for years and was just now, in this moment, uncovered. He looked at the teddy bear in Clara's small hands. His jaw tightened. His eyes went sharp and then, for just a second, soft. He turned and walked out without a word. Amara exhaled like she had been holding her breath underwater. Mama, Clara said, still holding the bear. He forgot his toy. The next morning, Amara arrived in the kitchen early. She had barely slept. She kept waiting for a knock on her staff quarters door. Security. Someone telling her to pack her things. Someone telling her she was fired, or worse. Nothing came. By 7, she was chopping vegetables with shaking hands when Mrs. Park walked in and poured herself tea without looking up. You went to the room, Mrs. Park said flatly. Amara froze. It was my daughter. She heard the, I know. Mrs. Park sat down heavily. The music box. It plays sometimes. We don't know why. Maybe a timer. Maybe he turns it on himself. She wrapped both hands around her mug. You want to know about the room? I don't want to cause trouble. You already caused trouble by going in. Mrs. Park looked at her finally. But you didn't run out screaming, and your daughter didn't break anything. So I'll tell you what everyone here already knows and pretends they don't. She set down her tea. He had a daughter. Her name was Suah. She was 4 years old. Her mother, his wife, died when the baby was 2. So it was just the 2 of them. People who worked here back then say you would not recognize him. He used to laugh. He used to carry her around on his shoulders. He read to her every night in that room. Amara felt something shift in her chest. What happened to her? Mrs. Park was quiet for a long moment. There are people who did not want Junwoo to become what he became. People inside his own circle. One night, there was an incident. The details, she shook her head. The details I don't know fully. What I know is that after that night, the child was gone. And he became who he is now. Gone. Amara's voice was barely there. You mean she died? I mean nobody talks about it. Mrs. Park stood. And you should not talk about it either. The room stays closed. The past stays buried. She looked at Amara with something between warning and sympathy. Keep your daughter away from him. Not because he is dangerous to her, but because she is dangerous to him. She makes him remember. And a man like that, when he starts to feel things again, it does not always end quietly. She walked out. Amara stared at the vegetables in front of her. She thought about the room, the drawings on the wall, the tiny white shoes, the tea set arranged like someone would come back any minute. She thought about his face when Clara held up that bear. She picked up her knife and went back to cooking. But her hands were steadier now. Not because she was less afraid, because she finally understood what kind of man she was cooking for. 3 days passed. Amara did not see Jun Wukong at all. His meals were collected by staff and taken to his study. The mansion felt tighter, quieter. Even the security guards moved differently, careful, heads down. Then on the 4th day, he appeared in the kitchen doorway. Amara kept her eyes on the stove. Clara, sitting at the counter eating rice, looked up immediately. "Hello," Clara said. He said nothing. He stood there looking at the kitchen like he was trying to remember why he had come. "Are you hungry?" Clara asked. "Mama made soup. It smells really good. She puts ginger in it because she says ginger fixes sad feelings." Amara closed her eyes briefly. "Clara, please." "Does it?" His voice was low, flat, but he had spoken. "Yes." Clara nodded very seriously. "When I fell off my bike and cried, Mama made soup and I stopped crying. So it works." A long pause. "Set a place at the counter," he said. Amara turned slowly. He was already sitting down, 2 seats away from Clara, looking straight ahead at the kitchen wall. She ladled soup without a word and placed it in front of him. He ate. Clara watched him with the kind of open, comfortable attention that only children have. "What was her name?" Clara asked. Amara's hand tightened on the ladle. "Clara," she started. "Sua," he said. The word came out like something that had been locked behind a door for years. He said it quietly, looking at the soup. Clara tilted her head. "That's pretty. Was she funny?" Another long silence. "Yes," he said. "She was very funny." His jaw moved. "She used to hide my shoes and then pretend she had no idea where they were." Clara giggled. "I do that to Mama." Something happened to his face then. Not a smile, not yet. But the stone moved. Just slightly. Like a crack in a wall so thick that even a crack meant something. "She also told me I looked sad," he said, almost to himself. Clara nodded very matter-of-factly. "Because you do." Amara braced herself. But he simply looked at Clara for a long moment. Really looked at her. The way a man looks at something that breaks him and heals him at the same time. And then he finished his soup, stood, and left. No, thank you. No, goodbye. But he had come back. The next day, he came back again. And the day after that. By the end of the week, Clara had given him a crayon drawing of a tall man and a little girl standing in front of a yellow house. She had written at the bottom in unsteady letters, "For you, so you are not alone." Amara found it later on his desk, placed carefully under a glass paperweight. She stood there staring at it for a long time. Mrs. Park had warned her. She is dangerous to him. But watching Clara reach into a place that years of power and fear could not touch, Amara was starting to think that maybe dangerous was not the right word. Maybe the right word was necessary. It started small. A door that Amara had left closed was open in the morning. A folder moved on the kitchen desk. One of the security guards, a younger man named Tay, watching her from across the courtyard with an expression she could not name. She told herself she was imagining things. Then one evening, she found Clara's drawing missing from the hallway, where Clara had taped it to the wall. "Clara, did you take your drawing down?" Clara shook her head. "No. I put it there so the house would be happy." Amara walked through the corridor slowly. At the far end, one of the staff doors was just closing. She thought about it all night. The next morning, she went to Mrs. Park. Someone has been going through my things. Mrs. Park did not look surprised. That itself was a signal. Since you went to the room? Mrs. Park asked. Yes. Mrs. Park looked down. There are people in this house who want the past to stay in the past. When Junwoo changed after losing Suah, there were people who benefited from that change. A cold man is a controllable man. A broken man stays focused on power because he has nothing else. She paused. Your daughter is making him soft again. Some people here see that as a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that gets people removed. Amara felt ice move through her. You mean fired? Mrs. Park looked at her steadily. I mean removed. That afternoon, Amara went to Junwoo's study and knocked. She had never done this before. Come in. He was at his desk, reading documents. He looked up. I need to tell you something, she said. Then say it. She told him everything. The open doors, the missing drawing, the guard watching her, what Mrs. Park had said. He listened without moving. When she finished, the room was quiet. You should have told me sooner, he said. I wasn't sure I wasn't imagining it. You weren't. He stood slowly. How long have you known about the room? About Suah? Mrs. Park told me. 4 days after Clara and I. She told you because she trusts you. He walked to the window. There are 3 people in this house who know the full story of what happened to my daughter. One of them betrayed me years ago, and I have never been able to prove it. He turned. Until your daughter walked into that room, I had no reason to look again. Amara's breath slowed. What does my daughter have to do with it? Because whoever took that drawing from the wall is scared. Scared means guilty. Guilty means they're still here. His voice was cold and certain. I need you to act normal. Cook. Let Clara continue as she is. Do not change anything. You want to use my daughter as... No. His voice changed. Not sharp. Something closer to careful. I want you to trust me. I will not let anything happen to either of you. Amara studied him. For the first time since she had arrived in this mansion, she believed him. Junwoo moved quietly. That was what made him dangerous. Not rage, not noise, but the calm, patient way he worked. Amara watched it unfold over the next 4 days without fully understanding it. He called no meetings. He fired no one. He changed nothing visibly. But he listened differently. He watched the people around him with new eyes. He spent more time in the kitchen. Not as a grieving man sitting with Clara, but as someone cataloging, remembering, collecting. One evening, he sat across from Amara while Clara slept in the small room they had been given. Tell me about Tae, he said. Amara kept her hands around her tea. The young guard? He watches me. Has been watching me since the night of the room. Before that night or after? She thought. After. He wasn't here 5 years ago, Junwoo said. He was brought in by someone else. Someone who hired staff while I was, not myself. His eyes were still. Someone who needed people here who were loyal to them, not to me. Who brought him in? My right-hand man. Director Shin. The name landed flat. Director Shin has been with you for how long? 12 years. He said it without emotion. He was with me when I lost Suah. He was the one who handled the aftermath. He organized the security. He decided which staff stayed and which left. Amara felt the pieces sliding together. He controlled what you knew. Yes. And when Clara walked into that room, when you started coming to the kitchen, when you started becoming human again. He said it himself, flatly, like a fact. He saw it. And he got nervous. Because a man who feels things asks questions. Because a man who feels things is harder to manage. Junwoo stood and walked to the window. Suah did not die in an accident. I knew that. But I stopped looking because looking felt like opening a grave. He was quiet for a moment. Your daughter reminded me that I owe Suah the truth. Amara's throat tightened. What are you going to do? I have already done it. I gave Director Shin a piece of information this morning. False information. About a vault I said I was opening, with documents from the night of the incident. He turned. If he moves on it tonight, I have my answer. And if he does? Then by morning, this is over. Amara looked at him. At this man she had feared, then pitied, then slowly, carefully, begun to understand. Why are you telling me this? He was quiet for a beat too long. Because you walked into this house and cooked my food every day without fear. Because your daughter sat next to me and spoke to me like I was a person. He paused. And because you deserve to know why your life was put at risk by being here. Amara nodded slowly. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. That night, at 2 a.m., the cameras in the mansion captured Director Shin walking to a room that did not exist. A room Junwoo had described to him that morning. By 3 a.m., Junwoo's security team had surrounded him. Director Shin did not break easily. But he broke. In the main room of the mansion, with 4 members of Junwoo's inner circle seated around the table, the truth came out piece by piece, like old stitching pulled from a wound. Amara stood near the doorway. Junwoo had asked her to stay, and she had not understood why until Shin began talking. You are becoming too soft because of the child, Shin said, his voice thin now, stripped of its usual confidence. You are starting to pull back from operations. You are asking about normal life. Your wife was already gone. And with Suah making you gentle, you would have walked away from everything. So you arranged the accident, Junwoo said. I arranged for her to be taken to the facility. Safe. I was told she would be safe. The room went very still. Taken. Amara said before she could stop herself. Junwoo did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on Shin. You told me she died, he said. Each word came out like stone being placed on stone. You showed me the report. You organized the burial. There was no burial, Shin said quietly. There was a document. A casket. I thought. Where is she? Shin looked at the table. I don't know. I swear I don't know. I handed her off to people who were supposed to take her somewhere outside the country. After that, he stopped. After that, I didn't look. I didn't want to know. The silence in that room was unlike anything Amara had ever felt. She looked at Junwoo. He was standing completely still, both hands flat on the table, looking at a man he had trusted for 12 years. His face was not angry. It was something far more terrifying than anger. It was a man realizing that the worst moment of his life was a lie, and that somewhere in the world, the thing he had been mourning might still exist. She could be alive, Amara said softly. He didn't answer. She could be alive, she said again, firmer. He finally looked at her, and for the first time in what she imagined was years, his eyes were not cold or closed or careful. They were terrified and hopeful, both at once. Shin was removed from the room. The inner circle began making calls. Junwoo stood at the window for a long time without moving. Amara stayed. She didn't speak. She simply stood nearby, the way you stand near someone who is carrying something too heavy to put down alone. After a long while, he said, I don't know what to do with hope. You don't have to know, she said. You just have to let it in. 2 weeks later, a call came from overseas. Amara was in the kitchen when she heard the sound. Not crying, not shouting, just a long exhale from upstairs, the kind that carries 10 years of weight in it. She set down her spoon. Clara looked up from her drawing at the counter. Is Mr. Kong okay? I think so, Amara said. I think he will be. The investigators Junwoo had sent across 2 countries had found a trail. A document in a children's facility. A record under a changed name. A girl, now 10 years old, placed in a home where she had been cared for. Not knowing who she was, not knowing who was looking. She was alive. Suah was alive. That afternoon, Junwoo came downstairs and stood in the kitchen doorway. He looked like a man who had been asleep for years and had just opened his eyes. You heard, he said. Your face says enough, Amara said. He walked in and sat at the counter. Clara immediately slid her current drawing in front of him. A big yellow sun with a smiley face. For today, Clara said. He looked at it for a long moment. I'm going to bring her home, he said. It's going to take time. There are legal steps. She doesn't know me. She's been somewhere else for 6 years. She may not, he stopped. It may not be easy. It won't be easy, Amara agreed. But easy is not the point. He looked at her. No, it's not. Later that evening, Amara walked upstairs alone. The door to the yellow room was open. She stepped inside. The music box was still. The toys were the same. The drawings were still framed on the wall. But the room felt different now, not like a sealed-off place of grief, but like somewhere that was waiting. A held breath about to be released. She straightened the small pink blanket on the bed. She picked up one of the storybooks, the one with Sua's name written inside, and ran her thumb along the letters. Clara appeared in the doorway. Mama, are we going to be okay here? Amara looked around the room. She thought about the 4 months behind her. The fear, the silence, the grief she had stumbled into, the truth that Clara's innocent feet had walked her into. She thought about a man who had turned to stone because no one had handed him a teddy bear and sat beside him. She thought about what healing actually looked like up close. Not a dramatic moment. Not a single conversation. Just a little girl asking, "Why don't you smile?" and a bowl of ginger soup, and a drawing placed under a glass paperweight. "Yes, baby," she said. "We're going to be okay." Clara walked in and sat on the small rocking chair as if she owned it. That night, for the first time, the mansion felt like somewhere a person could breathe. Downstairs, Junwoo sat alone at the kitchen counter, where Clara had left her son drawing. He held it with both hands. He had spent 6 years building walls, towers of power and fear and coldness, because he believed the only thing that had ever made him human was gone. But a 5-year-old girl in a yellow dress had walked through a door that nobody opened, handed him a bear, and refused to let him disappear. He set the drawing down carefully. Outside, the city moved. Somewhere across the world, a 10-year-old girl was sleeping, not yet knowing that her father was awake again. That night, the little girl did not just enter a forbidden bedroom. She entered the heart of a man everyone thought had none. And she left the door open behind her. If this story moved you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that go straight to the heart. And comment below. Which moment hit you hardest? We read every single one.